talk show. Where we're kicking it and having fun on inspirational radio. Real talk show. Kicking it and having fun. So turn your radio up.
In a world where there is devastation and destruction, there came a show called TheReuPLive. And it is hosted by none other than Deacon Seaworth, Lasagna Witt, and Bishop One Good Leg. These three dynamic heroes have the unenviable task of separating fact from fiction, and they're doing it live right here on TheReuPLive.
Yeah.
Coming this fall, TheReuPLive.
I'm gonna have to edit in some
Some of that movie music.
some cheers, some music.
There you go. There you go.
How y'all doing this week?
Good, good, good.
We here, man.
We here. Oh man, got this serious face, Mr. Dynamite. You ready to talk about some serious stuff, man?
He said, we in this thing. How you be saying it, Dion? We in this thing.
We're in this thing, man. Hey, listen, we in here like real hair, grown in and not sewn in. You heard me?
You in like real. He can't do
Wait
it.
till I grow this in like
Why
yours, man.
Or you won't be
grow mine
fancy.
in. Yeah.
Or you won't be fancy, huh?
Don't grow it in, Shelton. You know what I'm saying?
I'm trying, man. It just
Listen,
stop right here.
I'm gonna tell you what I've learned is that anything worth having is worth going through the process and seeing that thing come to fruition, because it's so much, gratification in seeing something that started off and it didn't seem like it was gonna go, and then all of a sudden it took off and God got a hold of it and made it happen. And it could happen with you, man. I mean, you could be the next example of what God can do if you give him the time and opportunity.
I got news for you, man. I've been in this process for over 40 years. This is where I had to tell my sons, like, I don't know, man. I don't know if it's possible for you to get that
Okay.
that Rick Ross, but
That real shadow.
right. So I wanted to tell y'all real quick about an experience I had yesterday, right? Yesterday I was going to, I had to go get my tires changed on my car. Then I went and got an oil change. So it was just a whole bunch of car stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I went to go get my oil changed and my car inspected, I was in the lobby area and I could hear like a bunch of bass like coming out of the garage, right? And I'm like, is that my car? Like, it was really, really, really loud, right? I'm like, is this my car out there bassing? So I look at my phone, because I always have my phone connected to my car, because I'm playing my playlist, and I see like one of my songs is playing. So I cut it off. And then I hear the noise again, like so surely that's not my car, but I look at my phone and my music is playing again. So the man comes out after they inspect my car and he was like, hey, my partner back there was just admiring your bass in your car, and we were listening to that music you had in your car. And I have like a Christian playlist, like Christian hip hop and stuff. So I had to do a shout out on TikTok for Caleb. They listened to 2 songs. He asked me about Caleb Jordan and this guy named Hovey. That's a part of 116. But they was in there jamming to my music.
Had that bass pumping. You were so scared. Is that my car? You turned it off. Them brothers turned it back on.
Yeah, and turned it up. Like, I don't even listen to my car that loud. But I was like, is that my car? Like, look at all that.
They was like, yeah, that's your bass player. That's your bass.
That's that bowl system.
They was ready.
I got a little box back there, Dion. Like, I had a little box put in there, and it's a little flat box. It can kick. I just
I see what's happening.
I like to hear my songs crisp when I'm in the car. That's my relaxation.
Oh, I see what's
You got
happening.
the 2 10s back there pumping?
man, yeah, it's pretty nice. The man hooked me up. He hooked me up. He got me a good price, and you know, I mean, apparently other people like it, but I think what I was most excited about is they wanted to know, you know, who them artists were, and that's what, you know, we've been talking about it a lot on seriously, right? What I was really excited about is they were hearing this Christian content music and really enjoying it, and just to have that open conversation and you know, let them know that these were some Christian artists that, you know, and you know, hopefully from there, you know, somebody plants a seed, somebody come by and water it, but
Don't
you
play.
know, they gonna go and look up those artists and hopefully run across some more music for them. So I'm really excited about that type of stuff when that happens. So
Awesome.
yeah, y'all got an experience like that?
Awesome. No,
No,
I don't got no
no,
bowls in my car. I don't got
you
the
don't got
flat
no balls
box.
in that.
I
I
ain't
be
got none of
listening.
that.
I be listening to people cussing and talking about, you know what I'm saying, Christian stuff. So, you know, I just, you know,
I don't got it.
You don't got it. I
I
got you.
don't got it.
Well,
I have to change my selection. You know what I'm saying? Maybe, you know what I'm saying, somebody could, you know, get an inkling of God. You know what I'm saying, through that.
man, I tell you, man, I think it's a powerful thing. You know, people operating in their purpose. So I kind of tagged them on my TikTok because I wanted them to hear about that experience, man. You know, you got
That's
the
awesome.
mechanic at the gas station, minute oil change,
There you go.
music in the garage.
Okay, that's what we're talking about right there.
Yeah, yeah.
That's good.
Um, so you know, last week I know we discussed a little bit about Easter at Mike Todd's church, and I don't really have no update with that. I know I think I saw something where someone may have came out and tried to. I don't know if it was an apology or anything like that, but just really a clarification um, of what their service was like. Um, I think I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure that they were talking about doing some re-airing of it, so people could, you know, hopefully experience the whole show instead of the snippets, snippets from the show. But you know, I think we did a good job, you know, talking through that. I finished editing that video yesterday, so I think all the edited versions are up now for people to go ahead and check that out. Um, and then you know, I know we talked a little bit about the Tennessee legislature. That still seems like that's ongoing, like that's going to be an ongoing thing. But you know, those Justins down there, I'm gonna just call them the Justins, J and J. They down
J
there,
and J.
they just making some noise. So, um, you know, to your point, Sonia, I think you know we need more, you know, people in politics like them. That are going to stand, you know, true to their faith and their beliefs. And
Mhm.
yeah, I think it's a good thing if we can get more of that to happen.
Yes, sir.
And you know, unfortunately though, because you know when we were talking about you know Justin Pearson and Justin Jones, it was at the end of or in response to them, you know, being expelled from their local legislature for speaking out against you know wanting to have some more gun control or some more things in place. And so I just know over the last since the last time we've spoken, last time we've done a show, there's been a mass shooting and two young people that have been accidentally shot
Wow.
based off of you know just driving in the wrong driveway. In Alabama, I think four. I think the last article I saw, four people died. I don't have like all the pictures and things, but you know we were talking a little bit about it on the show. Dion, they broke our record. You know, last week we were saying it wasn't people of color out here shooting people, and I mean, as soon as we say that, you know, we got some people of color out there in Alabama, you know, doing some things like this. So
Ooh.
Definitely prayers out to the family. But to me, again, people are people. And, that's why I think we need the control, or just some more control, some more, things put around it, to make sure that we got guns in the right people's hands, if anything, and definitely not in the wrong people's hands. Um, so there's just, I mean, every day to me it seems like there's an example of something like that. So we can start there. I mean, any other thoughts, about that? Again, prayer wise, I think as a church we need to pray for. I believe his name is Ralph Jar in Kansas City, and then Kaylin Gillis in New York.
Mhm.
Both of them. Ralph just pulled up, thought he was going to pick up his siblings from school, walked up to the door, wrong door, um, and from what I understand, he shot him, through the door, shot him in the head, and then shot him again while he was on the ground. Luckily, the young man is pulled through. I believe he's home. Um, I think what concerned me about it though is this happened, and whoever the man who did it, which I believe his name is Andrew Lester. Um, he kind of went home like the day after. So even after it happened, it didn't seem like we reacted to the situation the way we really needed to. Um, and then a very similar thing happened with Kaylin Gillis. She was shot by Kevin Monahan. I think her and her friends they had pulled into the wrong driveway. And as they were backing back out, he shot into the car, and um, she was shot. So uh,
Now I didn't hear
definitely,
about that one. I
yeah,
hadn't heard about
that
Dion. Did you hear about that? I hadn't heard about that particular one with the driveway.
Yeah. Um, I heard a little bit about both of those, but just like a real, like in passing, kind of did you hear about them shooting kind of thing.
Oh,
But,
okay. Because I didn't know that.
it's
Wow.
just, it's just another instance of, man, people, I think being, and to your point about, as soon as we say, hey, it's not us, it's them. I believe that this person that did the mass shooting, if they were, like us or whatever, they were probably wound up and set on that
Mhm.
course. And it wasn't just something that they woke up and decided to do. They, you know, that I like people all the time do. What I'm saying, they want to push different narratives. For whatever reason, be it financial or political or whatever the gain is out of it or whatever. I believe, wholeheartedly that a lot of times that a lot of those instances, especially when it's a one-off type situation or whatever, that person 9 times out of 10 was wound up and set on that course by somebody. It just stuff that we don't do. It's not us. We're not kidnapping and taking a bunch of hostages. We're not, shooting at people with a high powered rifle. We're not, going into schools and doing. That's just not how we get down. That's just not how we build. You know what I'm saying? It's just not, what we do. Now, if it is that one-off situation, I assure you, it was some coercing that has gone on prior to that. It wasn't something that they came up with on their own. I'm gonna do this. You know what I mean? So that's just my take on it.
yeah. But I think the bottom line is, no matter who it is or how it happened, you know, um, for a 16 and a 17-year-old to get, and I don't even know what type of weapon it is. Don't have. I know when it first happened, it really was one of those things that was kind of kept under wraps,
Mm.
uh, a lot. Like for a minute, people didn't know how many people were really, unalive. They didn't know how many people were hurt. Um, All we knew was a Sweet 16 party, right? What you're looking at are the four people that did pass, you know. And so, again, as Christians, it's very sad to just be having this discussion. And I would have to assume for four people to lose their lives and
Wow.
for 38 people to be injured, it had to be some type of automatic situation in there because, just a handgun.
Not gonna do all that. Not 38
Yeah,
people yet.
yeah. So, there's some assumptions in there. But, bottom line is, how does a 16 and a 17-year-old get a hold of a gun, period, right? And have access to going and doing, something like this. So,
Was that the birthday party, the Sweet 16, or was this a
yes,
different one?
it was a
Okay.
Sweet 16 birthday party. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Wow.
Sheldon, I mean, to your point, I mean, like that's what I was saying when we started talking the other day about gun control. Guns on the streets are readily available, man. They are
Wow.
readily available, and you don't have to have a whole lot of documents and requirements and all that to get them. You got the cash, you can get a gun today, today, today. Now, some of these young people, what I'm saying, are doing, sometimes they'll break into houses and get guns that way, what I'm saying, from homeowners or whatever that maybe have them put up or whatever. But like I said, if it's not that scenario where they stealing the guns, it's a scenario where, they hustled and came up with the money and then bought a gun on the street. I mean, that's how easy it is. Like you can pretty much, if you want a gun, you can get a gun today.
Yeah. What I would say though is most of the mass shootings that we've seen as of recent were people who had their guns legally though,
Really? Oh, I
or
didn't
at
know that
least
part. I didn't know that piece.
someone in their home owned
Okay.
the gun and they got their hands on it. These weren't people that, had their guns illegally. Now, me growing up in the hood, I know exactly what you're saying, Dion. Um, that there's definitely some people that can get some guns on the black market or on illegal. But again, even those start somewhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
They
Yeah.
start. There's a process with it. And I saw something interesting this week from another media personality, and they were just talking about different options. And this was one option I hadn't really considered, but they brought up the fact that back in I guess the 20s and the 30s, the Tommy gun was what the AR-15
Yeah.
is of
Mm-hmm.
today's time. And the way they got that one under control is they started taxing the Tommy gun really, really high. So if you
Mm.
owned a Tommy gun, or if you wanted to own one, the tax on it was pretty, astronomical.
Okay.
I think equivalent to, I think it was $200 back then, which would probably be equivalent to like maybe 2,000. I think they were saying now, just tax on top of whatever you had to pay for that particular gun. And so that was an option that I guess we put in place at one time in history.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess things like that, I don't understand why we're not taking a look at it, because I don't see nobody with a Tommy gun no more. So maybe that's something. To me, right now it's just super easy for you to walk into a Walmart or a store or a gun store or whatever, and there's really not a stipulation
Wow.
that can keep most people from getting a gun, and a gun of that particular caliber. Nothing that's gonna, sway you from doing that, right?
Wow.
That's the other picture. I have a picture of a young man.
Just the
This
shooter.
dude looks. No, this is the young man that walked up to the house. He was trying to pick up his siblings in Kansas City.
Oh, he got
Um,
shot. This young man got shot.
mhm. And
Oh,
this
okay.
man shot him through the door. Um,
Oh,
and you know, so mistaken identity or whatever. I think as they dig further into that, I think the last update I saw was that they did finally bring charges, to this man. Um, the last shooting was this young lady in New York.
okay. Yeah.
Um, and she just, her and her friends had kind of pulled into the wrong driveway, was kind of backing out. And this man shot into the car. So um, again, I don't know. I don't know if there's a simple answer for this, but definitely, um, I would say that we need to have some type of something done. You know what I mean? The conversation right now is, basically leave it as it is. Really it turns into a argument about, the Second Amendment and what that really means. But what's going on? You have, a bunch of just innocent lives being lost. Um, and, the discussion is to me, I don't know if it's going anywhere. It's just really become a political speaking point. Um,
Mm.
I don't think anyone believes that, again, you just ban guns all together. But, Dan, I know you said this on our last show. We definitely need to have some regulations in there. And it doesn't seem like, we're getting some type of consensus from both sides to make that happen. So going back to, politicians like Justin Pearson and Justin Jones, they seem to,
Mhm.
be standing on that request and standing on, at least trying to protect as many young people as possible. I mean, I even heard that, and I can't think of the state, man. It was like Montana or something like that, something up northwest, where they were voting on having teachers have guns, in the school. Like, I, I don't know. I don't even know.
Man.
I don't even know if the teachers want that type of responsibility. Like they went to
Ooh, yeah,
college to
because then,
become
yeah.
teachers.
Do they keep it in their desk? Do they take it home? Is it under the seat? Like they tap it, they just strap it to the seat. Like what is gun gonna be?
I don't know.
That has a potential to really get out of hand, and especially in the climate that we're in now. If you see so many of these videos where these students are really physically attacking these teachers, you know,
They are.
the teacher's
Yeah,
standing up there saying, "Hey, you guys, y'all sit down," or this and
That's
that,
the
the
truth.
third, and blah blah blah, and the student is getting rowdy up in their face, and the next thing you know, they fist fighting. So you think about it, if the teacher got a gun in their desk, you know what I'm saying, that can go a whole nother way. You know what I'm saying? The teacher could get the gun prematurely and shoot the student. The student could get the gun and shoot the teacher. I mean, it's just so
That's the
much that could
truth.
happen that could end, very tragically. I just don't think that that's a good idea. Like any way you slice it, any way you slice that. Now, if you got some teachers that maybe are ex-military or ex this or that have been trained or what have you, you may
Yeah,
sanction them to carry the gun or what have you in maybe a active shooter type situation or whatever. But outside of that, just normal everyday teachers, nah, brother. That's
but
gonna end bad for a
it
lot of
might be
people.
too, it might be
I'm gonna tell you
panic
that.
involved, and it might be
Oh
panic
yeah,
but the
involved, and then you
absolutely,
getting it,
absolutely.
or the student take
You
it
get a
from you and
big,
shoot too.
you get a big student, a big oversized student, and these kids, how they big and overgrown now. It's a shooting. That's period. They're not gonna try to
So
restrain
and
these little old teachers.
but
They gonna pop them.
I
yeah,
but
I get it though.
think about the fact that we're actually having this discussion
Isn't that
where
something to even think
teachers
about it, to even talk about it?
considering,
Yep, that's the truth.
right. Like, I
Crazy.
mean, I'm when we were growing up or when I was growing up, I the last thing I thought of was, having to worry about gun violence or something in school. Like
That's
the
true.
worst thing we was worried about was maybe a fight after school, some fisticuffs or something like that. But definitely not, you know, this level of gun violence and protection needed just to just to keep your kids safe. And
That's true.
but for me, that's kind of what it just boils down to. Like, and what can we do to, you know, um, at least curtail this? And I know the last show, or one of our shows, previous shows, I brought up some of the stats. Um, in the United States, we're one of the highest in mass shootings and things like that. Um, but we also have some of the least regulations when it comes to that type of stuff. And I get it, and from the Christian point of view, um, and from the people point of view, the rebuttal is normally that people, kill people, so
Hmm.
it's not just the weapon, but um, again, what type of stipulations, what kind of regulations are we putting in to make sure that we're not putting guns in people who have mental issues at the very least? You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Not struggling with different things, and these type of guns in those people's hands. So even if that's the stance that we want to take, it still makes sense to make sure that we have at least some type of stipulations. I know you're not going to be able to catch everybody that's
Yeah.
that's dealing with something. I heard something earlier today where they were talking about people being possessed by demons.
Wow.
It was like a deliverance, message. And I was kind of curious what you guys think about that. Like, I've heard Christians say that a lot of the things that we call mental illness is just people, possibly, being led by demonic spirits. Do you guys like
I think
prescribe
that
to that, or?
very well could be the case. You look at so many of these people, and so many of the things that they do are seemingly out of their character. You hear their family and their friends, they get on TV and, man, they never would have done anything like this, and this is so crazy and so shocking or whatever.
Hmm.
So it kind of lends itself to that theory or whatever. But at the same time, you just don't know how people handle pressure. You know what I'm saying? They click
Hmm.
out, and it can go one way or it can go the other. You know what I mean? They could get isolated and off to themselves and deal with their problems, or they could take it out on everybody. So you just never know. But it definitely it could go that way.
Hmm. I'm with
I
you.
think that. Go ahead,
No, go
son.
ahead. No, no, Sean, go ahead.
No, I was thinking the scripture that came to mind was when Jesus was walking with the disciples and the man that was in the cave,
Uh-huh.
um, that that had a bunch of demons in him.
Hmm.
We
Hmm.
called, was it
Legion.
Legion?
Yeah, Legion.
Yeah. I mean, so in those cases, I hear what you're saying, Dion, but it seems like for like somebody like him, like they knew for a while
Right.
something
Yes.
was up with him. You
Right.
know what I mean? They
Yeah.
didn't even want to mess with that man because he was in the cave. Like
No, that man was
it was like,
strong.
hey,
No,
right.
he was strong. Hmm. There's no messing with the Legion. No, Legion, he was strong. They had him tied down with chains, and he'll tear the chains off. Yeah, Legion wasn't to be played
Right.
with.
Yeah. He
Hmm.
did that.
Yeah, but I
See.
do think
But
I think it do be sometime demonic influence. From
Yeah.
the spirit realm, I will say, because all human behavior starts in the spirit. Good behavior, bad behavior, and depending on your bloodline, depending on what you're exposed to, depending on medication, it's a lot of things that could be involved. May not be just specifically one thing, but it could be. I believe it's a spirit root to all issues, but depending on the level of intensity of what happened in your bloodline or the influence of the spirit realm over your bloodline, I think some of it could be heavily demonic influence, and then some of it could be, like, let's say, brain chemicals or something like that, a chemical imbalance or some med that you need or some medicine that you need. So I will
Mhm.
say sometimes the stuff like that could be bloodline, or could be something that could have happened that caused you a trauma. Like when people go to war and stuff and they come back with PTSD, like a very traumatic experiences, I think cause alterations in your emotional well-being and stuff. So I think it's a lot of things that can influence human behavior. And I think that's just, we can't isolate to just say all of it is demons, but I do think some variation in the spirit, some kind of way, is influencing the behavior.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I don't know, Sonia, I think you said this on one of our previous episodes. Um, we at least touched on seeing about people, right? Now
Hmm.
I always go back to this, but I feel like we're so distracted with
Hmm.
doctrine differences. We're so
Hmm.
distracted having conversations about things that we differ with in church, and we need to have opportunity to actually see about people. You know what I mean? People in the
Okay.
church and
Hmm.
people outside of the
Hmm.
church, because I brought up that scripture about the man in the cave is because there, you mentioned trauma, right? You can
Hmm.
start seeing signs of trauma before it really happens that way. And to your point, Dion, you see the news reports and, oh, I didn't believe such and such would do this and this, but like, how
Hmm.
closely do we even look at people? Do we care enough about people outside of
True.
ourselves to where we're really looking at them and seeing, about them and seeing that they might be struggling with something or might be dealing with something? Are we opening ourselves or making ourselves available at times to people to where they feel comfortable to say, hey, I'm having these type of thoughts, or I'm going through these type of things. And again, I'm not putting the onus like it's someone's fault for not seeing it, but I do think there's opportunity from the Christian. If we were as a church operating like God meant us to operate, we probably see a lot more of those, those things before people get to that point. Because I can't imagine that just one day, all the time, it's someone clicking and deciding.
Hmm.
A lot of these mass shootings, when they go back, you can go back to their social media, you can go back to their
Hmm.
private diaries and see that this was something kind of building up. And
Right.
You can see that because at that point, what I'm saying, these people are doing investigation into them and they're going deep into, what I'm saying, some
Hmm.
places where they might have tried to hide that or felt like they could let it out over here, but they couldn't let it out like in public. So, to that point, when you see their family and friends get on and be like, I never thought that they would be like this because they were putting on a happy face in front of them,
mhm,
Hmm.
privately on their social media or other places, they were letting it seep out little by little or what have you. So
Hmm.
when you go back and do the investigation, based on what has happened, they getting the whole picture, from family and friends and from their private places, what I'm saying, where they was letting it out. So that's how they can see that. But to the people that are shocked by this, they had no idea because, like I said, in front of them, they were like, "Oh, everything's good." You know what I mean? And so, you get that perspective when you're able to go back like that. But these people don't know. They living in the house with some of these people. They done bought them up. They raised them. They fed them. They clothed them. But they never had an inkling that they was gonna snap like that because they didn't let it show. They kept it tight, and it wound up the whole time. You know what I mean?
and I can see that. But what I will say is this: like, it is easier to see it after the fact. Once it's happened.
Hmm.
Um, but I can't help but also see that if we were more focused and more intentional
Oh, of
about
course.
seeing about people, maybe we would notice some of those signs and some of those things. 'Cause, for example, like, again, if all of these details were there after the fact and you can see them clearly, to your point, there were these signs before, but you just didn't have the full, I guess, viewpoint of that. But if it was your focus, if we really did just care about people, I think to a certain to a different level, then I I think some of this people issue could be could be handled, especially with like young people. And there's a lot of a lot of the mass shootings that have happened recently were from younger people, right? So parents and people in their community. Um, we're going to talk a little bit about what happened, the settlement between Dominion and Fox News, but think about how irresponsible it was for a whole media company to push a lie, and how many of these people that have done mass shootings based off of this lie, or a certain lie or something that was told to them, right? Um, and as Christians, I guess for me, as Christians, if the bottom line is to share truth, right? We should always be seeking truth, and we should all be delivering that truth in love, right? And regardless if it goes against our politics, regardless if it goes against our personal proclivities or whatever, the truth is the truth. You know what I mean? And we should definitely be striving for that. And I thought a lot about the conversation we kind of touched on last show, where the knowledge of the word is one thing, and then the heart of the word is or having the word on our heart is a whole another thing as well. You know what I mean? I came across Hebrews 8, which kind of breaks that down, 8:10, where Jesus is basically saying that the Bible is telling us that you got the law written on your mind, but He wants to write it on our hearts, right? And through your heart, if your heart is in line with God's heart, you're gonna start seeing things and seeing about people differently, caring about people differently, and again, seeing the truth, no matter what. If the truth is there's a certain policy that is, racist, affecting the poverty, or people who are impoverished, you know, unfairly, is unjust, then again, no matter what you support, you're going to want to see the right thing and expect the right things to happen with this. Like I am still surprised at people who can see, things like these shootings happen and not have a heart for the actual people, the victims, in those situations. They have more of a heart, I think, for the right to have a gun than the actual people that have been wrongly harmed by that gun, if that makes sense. And I'm not just talking about worldly people. I'm specifically talking about Christians who don't have that heart. That is always surprising to me. Like, why don't we have compassion for them? Why do we have more compassion about, my right to have a gun more so than the people who are unfairly dying because of a gun, or being in the wrong hands?
It's the truth. It's the truth. And it take a lot of work to be plugged in. Like Sheldon, you say when you have kids or you have family or you at work. And a lot of times we raised, or our society is more narcissistic because it's about self. I got to get to work. I got to get this. I got my own trauma. I ain't got time for that. It's not that you say it. I don't even think you're trying to be mean. But a lot of times you got so much going on in your life, your own household be getting by you.
Right.
You look, you be like, you don't even pay attention. So you could be like Deion say, you don't have a clue what's going on because you got to be plugged in to God and pay attention to what's going on to really know what's going on. And a lot of times you not plugged in because you're distracted by your own pain, your own raising, your own trauma, your own busyness of day. And sometimes you don't want the responsibility to worry about what nobody else doing. Hey, I got to worry about what I'm doing. I can't worry about what you're doing. I house, clothe, and feed. You not going to school, get your stuff done, get grown and get your own stuff, and then run your house the way you want. And not even trying to be mean or But a lot of times that's just, it's autopilot living. You're not intentional with anything. You go to work because you got to pay bills. It's not that you're going to work. I got a purpose and a plan. God called me to do this. He called me to do that. I'm called to this industry and doing, no, we paying bills, putting food on the table, buying them clothes, and boom, that's over. And when you disconnect that much, a lot of stuff in life will get by you. Marriages get by married people, kids get by their parents, parents get, and you're not plugged in enough to see what's going on at work or even in your own house. So you really could be shocked, like, oh shoot. Or even if you saw the signs or felt a little bit, you brush it off. Because I think sometimes people do have a clue, but you just overlook it. Like if that little prick come in your heart, that little prick get in your chest, you be moving so fast until you're not plugged in enough to really notice, oh man, I need to pay attention to that. Because I believe
Right.
sometimes God talks and you just zoom and zoom and zooming. And it's like it's a little voice. He don't be screaming loud, like, pay attention to that. Such and such ain't doing good. And you just move on until some collapse. And it don't have to be a shooting for it to collapse. It could be other stuff that in people's households that collapsed and it didn't even result in a shooting. So you got to be plugged in and intentional. And that's a lot of work on people, depending on how they was raised. Because a lot of people have encountered so much trauma, they spend the first few years of their life being traumatized and they spend the next 60 recuperating from it.
Right.
And usually without help. So, you self-medicating, you self-diagnosing, and you just doing whatever you want to do. So it's a lot to it. I believe it's like a layers, like an onion, to peel it back to be plugged in. And I think it's a lot of work. And you have to really be intentional to work that hard. You're not just going to do that just happenstance or just get up and it's a lot of work there to be intentional about your life. That's for any of us.
That's true.
you know, and certainly, to
So
that
that's
point,
what I would say about that.
these people sometimes that are going through these
Dion,
issues.
did we lose Shelton?
No, he's there. I can
Dion,
hear
I
him.
see you move. Shelton, okay, there we go.
Can you hear me?
Okay. It seemed like we lost you for a second. Or maybe it's me.
You
Am I
good?
okay?
Can you hear me?
Can you hear Dion?
Hello,
Sonya?
Sonya.
Sonya?
She froze.
Oh. Well, go ahead. What were you about to say, Sonya? I mean, Dion?
I was just gonna say that, like, a lot of these people that are having these traumas and these issues don't necessarily always lash out at other people. They go inward. That's what I was saying, kind of in a light way. Is that sometimes they go inward and they unalive themselves. You know what I mean? They go in the bathroom. You think they just in there taking
Yeah,
a
I hear
shower.
you. It was
They be,
breaking up a little bit.
they be done took a bunch of pills, or
Okay,
cut
now
their
I'm gone.
wrists or whatever the case may
Shelton,
be.
delete me. Now
So,
I'm okay. I can hear you. Dion, I
it's
heard
like
you now.
you can
Shelton,
hear
can
me
we hear
now.
you?
Yeah,
Okay, I hear you, Shelton. Because you had skipped out for a second. Yeah, I'm here. Can y'all hear me?
yeah, we
We
can.
can now. Dion talking.
Okay. Yeah, you can't hear me?
I
I'm
think you
talking.
delayed.
We hear you.
Uh-oh.
We hear
Is my
you.
phone
We hear you
acting up?
now.
I'm froze.
Yes,
I don't
you
You
look
froze.
were.
froze to me.
You
You
were
good?
froze.
Am I in now?
You good?
Yeah, you good now. Can you hear Dion?
Hello. Yeah.
Hey, hey, Sonya, do me a favor. Back out and come back in. Go ahead, Dion. I'm sorry.
So, it's like these traumas and things, affect people in different ways, and that's the kind of thing that, to your point, we got to see about them, because things happen, and I myself remember different embarrassing moments from my high school days that, had I not had my head on straight, could have really taken me out. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, as parents or as whoever, what I'm saying, we might not look at these things as serious as we ought to, but we need to, when those things happen or whatever, not only have the relationship to where our
I hear
kids
you.
can
Can
come
y'all?
and talk to us about it, but also, to continue to check on them thereafter to make sure that they make it to the other side, you know what I'm saying, of that situation as far as being okay, because just because they got up the next day doesn't mean they're fully okay. You know what I'm saying? We have to continue to check in from time to time after something like that happened, because, you know, we just don't know how deep it went. They could
Right.
still be teasing them, you know, on a daily basis thereafter, because kids are, you know, they gonna bring it up till they get old to them. You know what I mean? So it's just a lot to do. And to Sonia's point, you know, we get so busy as adults or whatever with what our responsibilities are in providing, and especially in the single parent home. I mean, you got a lot on your shoulders with having to the responsibility of making sure that everybody eat and has a place to stay, has lights and all those kind of things. You know what I'm saying? To where it's harder to see about, you know, little Johnny or little Janie, you know what I'm saying, wetting themselves at school, or, you know what I'm saying, stepping in a mud puddle and having gunk all on their clothes every day. You know what I'm saying? That seems trivial to us, but to them, their reputation or their perception or how they're viewed is everything to them at that point. And so it's a big deal. And so we got to just be more mindful of that. And those are the beginning stages sometimes of these traumas that make them act out towards people or act out towards themselves, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. I can definitely understand that. I just, I really feel, so one, as a parent, right? I think it's super important that we watch what we say and what we do around our kids.
Yeah.
I think what ends up happening in a lot of these cases is, maybe the parent isn't as gun ho about a certain issue as their kids are, but like our kids, kind of, to me, this next generation is taking stuff to extremes. You know what I mean? Like if they feel a certain type of way for it, they're willing to really have a conversation about it. They're not afraid to have a conversation about it. They're not afraid to do something about it. And so, if and I hate to say it, like if you grow up in a home where there's a lot of racial confusion, right? And
Right.
discussion about a different race in a different light. Maybe you don't expect your child to react in the way that they do, but the way our kids right now are reacting, they like we're not talking about it. Let's do something about it. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And that's the type of stuff. Like, so I hear when people say that they're surprised about different things, but I think I've lived life long enough to understand and at least start paying attention to different warning signs with people. And I think the more you open yourself up with God, He kind of gives you discernment about a lot of different things like that. I mean, even if it's sometimes they just need somebody to pray for them. I come across a lot of people and they're in a certain type of lifestyle, they're doing something. My first thought is to pray for them, or
Mhm.
ask God to kind of come into their situation. And I guess my only challenge to any Christian that would is listening or would be listening to this show, is just to keep the focus the main thing. I'm not saying we're gonna catch it all. I'm not saying, to your point, Dion, like there's some people who aren't really good at hiding, what they're going through. But a lot of this stuff does have some little telltale points that if we weren't so narcissistic and
Mm.
so self-centered about even our walk with God, and we can be judgmental about all kinds of other things, but the stuff that we need to have discernment on, we just completely overlooking it because it's in a place of seeing someone hurt or someone's trauma and caring enough about it, to at least want to pray or intercede and ask God to kind of help and step in that situation. um,
Mhm.
that could help a lot, I think, on the people side of things. And then on the practical or the government side of things, We just got to be. I think we got to be um, more cautious about who we put guns. It shouldn't be something that like everybody can go get an AR-15. Unless you got some type of felony or something like that. And I don't even know if that's a stipulation anymore. You get an AR. You get an AR.
It's too many ARs.
Right. And I alluded to this second part of the show earlier, but Dominion is getting 7.8 or what $787.5 million from Fox. Like, wow, that's a lot of money.
I didn't know that till you just said it. I didn't know it was that much.
Yeah, they settled out of court for they settled for $787.5 million.
Explain to our listeners what happened, because they get bits and pieces of it, so we can tell them what was that about.
So, I mean, the case, just in a nutshell, was the election that we just came out of, the presidential election. Mm-hmm. Donald Trump and a lot of politicians made a lot of claims that were false claims, apparently, through investigations or whatever, that the election was stolen, that votes weren't counted in certain areas, and especially states that were, I guess, won by the Democratic Party. It was just really a big conspiracy that the Dominion systems were involved with getting Biden into presidency and making sure that Trump didn't get into presidency. And, just following some of the things that happened with this court case, a lot of the announcers from Fox News, the owner, Murdoch, I believe his name is Murdoch, none of them really banned, but based off of how they built their media presence, it behooved them to keep, and I guess, helping with this lie. And maybe they didn't expect or didn't know Dominion and other people would take it as far as they did. But like we always say, there's a responsibility, I think, in media for us to. There's a responsibility in media for us to, just make sure that we're bringing truth, to the people who listen to us and who we influence. Yeah.
Sometimes what's right is not popular, and what's popular ain't always right. Go on the side of right, and you'll come out better, because, like you say, it's consequences. Now, it was good when everybody was saying it was popular to say that, but when everything clear out, you're going to be held accountable for what you said. Now they paid. How much did that cost them? How much millions? $700 million?
787, almost $800 million.
Because of how they destroyed their reputation and stuff for the system.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's still, I honestly think there's still some things that should be done with it. I don't know. From what I heard, I don't even know if Fox came out and, publicly apologized. But really where I wanted to go with this is, again, there was a lot of believers, a lot of Christians who were a part of this bandwagon, right? Or a part of this thing. And I even remember some people prophesizing that, God is going to show and bring out all the proof that the election was stolen and stuff like that. And, that to me affects our testimony when we're talking to unbelievers, when we're talking to people who haven't been introduced to Christ and who don't have a relationship with God yet. When we mix our political thoughts and beliefs and stuff like that, it tarnishes our testimony. It tarnishes when we stand on something and say God is behind this and God wants this and God is going to show this and it doesn't happen, it's just us in flesh and it's just us and what we personally want, then that's not good. It's not good at all, And so, what do we do in situations like this where, the investigations have been done, the texts have come out, and the lie has been, shown, as Christians, what are we doing to at least come back and say, you know what, I was wrong about this. This didn't have nothing to do with God. This is what I wanted to happen. This is what I wanted to see, and this is what I wanted to believe. How many of my brothers and sisters are gonna, really, backtrack and make sure that there's a delineation between what they believe politically and what they believe spiritually, or, and I said it last show, like, do they honestly think those are one and the same?
That's true. You're right. Honestly, yeah, just say what God say, because God is bigger than our politics. He's bigger than how we try to put him in these boxes when we have agendas we want to push for whatever reason. You want the taxes low, or you want a particular person in office because they push your agenda and it more in line with how you feel personally. So you want them in there. I get it. But don't just make like God said that just because you want that. Just say what God said, no more, no less. Because everything God say to me, I don't necessarily agree with it. But I'm not going to say he didn't say it just because I don't like what he said. That's where you got to draw the line now. Just because you don't like it don't mean he didn't say it. You got to be cautious with that, saying, oh, God said, because that's what you want, or that's what you want to push, or you may even believe that's the right thing to push, but God didn't say nothing about it. So just don't you say nothing about it. If God don't talk, you don't talk. Because some stuff we want, some stuff we really believe is right, but it don't mean God said anything about it. You might be strongly convicted to feel a certain way, but you can't pull God in and say, yep, God said this, he said that, because when it don't turn out, because God don't lie. He's not a man that he should lie. He's not the son of man that he should repent. If I said it, that's what it is. He don't have to backtrack, because whatever he says is going to happen, no matter what you do or how you fix it. That's what it is. So when it don't turn out how you say, that ain't what God said. That's what you said.
Right. And are we mature enough? You made this statement last week, Simon. You said, are we, mature enough to say, God, I might be wrong about this, and I might not, have all the answers with this. Let me get the truth, about this, and again, I haven't seen any of the media or Christian media people that I've seen help push this narrative. And again, I'm speaking directly to my brothers and sisters who do, what we do. They have a Christian platform online. Step back and say, you know what, I may have been wrong about this, or I was wrong. Obviously, I was wrong about this. You know what I mean? And again, this was my, how I was doing the political version, and then the belief, my Christian or kingdom version. There's a difference. What God wants for us doesn't always align with what our politics say. You know what I mean? And that's on both sides of the aisle. Again, I'm talking more to my conservative brothers, because as of late, that's what's been really popping out. A lot of, I think Christian nationalists, that word gets thrown around, that make a lot of statements in the name of God, saying that it represents God. But, my biggest issue with all of that is how it affects our testimony when we're talking to someone like an atheist or a non-believer or someone who doesn't know God. Now they get confused because, oh, your God is supposed to support this and your God is supposed to support that. And, that goes against what God is really trying to show, some of these people. That's not a good thing. That's not a responsible thing for us to do. So, Mr. Dynamite, what you think?
I think it's a fine line. A lot of these people truly believe, that they hearing from God. And that's why, a lot of times you don't get an apology. You don't get any backtracking because they like, I fully believe that God told me to do this or told me to do that or whatever the case may be. And he ain't said nothing to you. And,
How does that happen though?
they get it in their mind that that's what they want to happen, and they think that God agree with them because things are falling into place, so to speak, for it to happen.
Hmm.
Or like David Koresh, you know what I'm saying? He was a master manipulator. He like was next level manipulator. You know what I'm saying? I heard one of the ladies in the documentary that said she met him before all of that started, and just in a few moments conversation with him, she felt like she could follow him anywhere.
Wow.
Like
Yeah.
he had that, what I'm saying, that ability, the way his conviction level was when he spoke about different things, people followed him because, he seemed convincing. He seemed, like he knew what he was talking about. And that's how these people are or whatever. When they get it in their mind, they're saying it, but they're saying God said it with such conviction that you believe, well, man, well, maybe, this, that, or the third. Well, maybe blah, blah, blah. And before you know it, you thinking that that's gonna jump off. And when it don't, you're not looking at them sideways. You're now looking at God sideways because they didn't convince you so much that God said that this was going to happen. It didn't happen. But in actuality, God never said nothing like that. That's why it didn't happen.
Yeah.
So, no, you ain't gonna get no apology from none of them. Fox ain't finna apologize to them people. They'll pay them because it is what it is in terms of the court case. But they don't care nothing about them and their feelings and how they what I'm saying, embarrass them or whatever the case may be. They going on to the next thing.
Yeah. And again, I don't necessarily expect Fox, to your point, to apologize. It's more, my Christian brothers and sisters who've kind of stood on the stance that Fox and a lot of other media outlets were using for stuff like that, right? And then attaching God's name to it and God's will and God's purpose to it. That becomes the problem, and I, it's a problem for me, but I really, more importantly, think it's a problem for God. Like it happens, too much. I think about how the Pharisees worked back in the Bible. You know what I mean? Like a lot of those Pharisees and Sadducees actually worked with the Roman government. They were getting, a back, getting little back pay, little incentive to make sure that they kept their Jewish brothers in line, right, and make sure that they help drive whatever narrative, right? So this, the devil don't have really any new tricks on how he does things, right? And the way God dealt with it then, and it's very obvious, right? That's the reason why they had a problem with Jesus, because Jesus was coming and he was just talking truth and love, period, right? So, they were using these scriptures to help God and herd people and make them do certain things based off of what, this is what, Leviticus says, and this is what the scripture says, and if you don't do this, then, you're going to get stoned and you're going to do this. So, that attitude is not too, it's when you think about today's time, it's not too far off. You know what I mean? It's if you don't fall in line with this, there's going to be a problem with it. And then they try to attach God to it. Right, because I think government has always realized, when you think about the Roman Catholics, back in Rome, like the church really ran things. They were behind a lot of the conquest and a lot of the things that were happening. And so, again, when I hear like an atheist, when I hear non-believers talk about different things, that's what they attribute the church more to than what
Mhm.
Jesus and what God really wants the church to represent. And I just feel like we have a lot of brothers and sisters that are still continuing to push that narrative. And for us to be as impactful as we need to be in this world, we got to get to a point where we're changing that narrative. Again, caring about, individuals, having a heart
Mhm.
for people outside of ourselves, being less
Mhm.
narcissistic, less
Yeah.
judgmental, less
Mhm.
political. um,
We ain't got to change the narrative because at the end of the day, God's will is still gonna be done. The Pharisees and the Sadducees and the Romans, they were all doing their thing, but Jesus still came here, still did what he had to do, still fulfilled his purpose. And it's even the same today or whatever with a lot of the things that go on or whatever. I mean, these people are throwing dirt and throwing shade at every little thing that they can do or whatever. But God is still gonna get the glory at the end of the day. It doesn't matter about none of that because people are gonna follow them, based on whatever they deem them right or whatever or credible. And God is still gonna get what He's gonna get based on what is actually right and credible. And so, you gotta, that's the whole free will thing. You know what I'm saying? I mean, if these people foolishly follow these fakers, what I'm saying, then they will receive their just reward. If you can understand and see the truth and open your eyes, you'll get your reward. And so, we have to just stand on what we believe, what I'm saying, help those that want to be helped, and those others or whatever ain't a lot of help for them because they're gonna do what they're gonna do,
and
especially
that's and that's
with
my
social
biggest
media.
concern. My biggest
Yeah.
concern is not necessarily just my brothers and sisters who are walking in that, but the people who aren't believers, who are atheists, that see this narrative and think that's who God is. Because ultimately, absolutely, I agree with you. In the end, God, He's already won. We already know how the story ends.
Mhm.
But again, a lot of generation of people who don't know God, that's a problem. And um, this behavior that we're describing is really getting in the way of reaching those people. You know what I mean? And um, that's what I think I'm more concerned about is, yes, God, He's going to get all the glory. It's already, we already know how all of that turns out. But our job and what He's tasked us with to do is to go out, share the gospel, make disciples, and um, this whole political thing in tying our personal agendas gets in the way of that a lot of times. And um, to your point, these people have to end up, believing on their own and having their, working out their own salvation. But we can make sure that we're not in the way of that,
Mhm.
and we're not getting in the way of them having that opportunity because we see all the stuff that's happening. We see all the things that's going down. The world doesn't seem like it's getting better. You know what I mean? A, a mass shooting or someone dying from a gun at least once a day.
Too much.
It's a
Mhm.
lot. The rumors of wars,
Mhm.
the weather patterns, you
Yes, sir.
name it. It's these birthings or these groanings that the Bible talks about at the end of the times. In the times is, a lot of that's what we're going through right now, right? And um, again, any show that we in, I want our listeners to really focus on the fact. Let's keep the main thing the main thing, and reach as many people as we can with the goodness of
Mhm.
God. Like again, all the denominational things, all the things that we separate or we see different on, all that could be worked out. Like
Yeah.
that could be worked out. People read the Bible. You teach people to read the Bible on their own, have a relationship with God. Go get involved with the good church home, one that feeds you, one that you can listen to and grow with, we can all move, we can all do that. That's how our personal growth happens. But that discipleship, I think we try to be too, I don't know, the word that comes to mind is hands on, or like we want to be people's God. Like we want to work out all their salvation and fix them and make them right and see things. I don't know. We feel like we get an extra badge of honor, for that. But God didn't ask us to do that. He asked us to make the introduction, to tell them the good news, tell them the gospel, um, be there for them when they need us, and love on them. And other than that, hold each other accountable if we have a relationship with people. But yeah.
Yes,
So,
sir. I love it. That's what we are, the salt of the earth. What the Bible call us? We're the salt of the earth. And what is salt if it loses flavor? If we do our job, we can infect. It don't take a little salt. You ever notice when you cook food, it don't take a little salt to infect the whole pot? It only take one Christian can chase 1,000, 2, 10,000. The multiplicity, but one, do your 1,000. Get your salt and spread what you got on the inside of you, and it make a big difference. It really does. Because a bigger problem, Sheldon, is Christians don't trust God. They had trauma happen to them, and they don't trust them. So they making up their life too. They sprinkle God in there a little bit, because you got to have God. You was raised in church with God, but now God let all this stuff happen to me. I don't know about him. There's a lot of people that's in pulpits, deacons, ushers, pastors, preachers, regular folk. I believe they have a relationship with God. I believe they love God, but I don't believe some of them just don't trust him because they equate their trauma to God too, instead of the people who did the traumatizing.
yeah.
That happens in church all the time. And they'll be in church praising God, lifting up hands, they pay tithes and stuff. But when it comes down to really listening to him and trusting him, we have a way that seems right. You figure it out on your own because you don't figure that, oh no, God. And the thing is, they don't say it, but they live like it.
Right.
So it's a lot of trauma within the body trying to affect the world. Yeah.
That's good stuff.
Yeah.
For sure.
So we gotta help each other too.
We do. And I think that's my main point. Like instead of tearing each other down, we should really be helping each other and trying to encourage each other as much as possible. Talking about each other on social media ain't gonna do it. Like I can tell you right now, you catch me messing up, you think talking about me on social media is gonna get me right. That's all that's gonna do is cause some problems. That's it. But
I'm gonna say, Shelton, I saw you driving on the wrong side of the lane on Instagram. Anybody, what y'all think about this? Asking for everybody else's opinion. Just call Shelton and tell them.
And I think what people are, y'all been on the show with me long enough. Like I'm transparent. I'll tell my own testimony, because I do realize that when we do have struggles, when we do share things, and we actually share how God's bringing us through or brought us through those situations, that's healing and that's an opportunity and hope for somebody else. So it ain't even like I'm worried about someone, putting my business out there. Half the time I'm tell my own stuff anyway.
Okay.
But it's just the principle of things. Like, accountability. God gives us, Galatians 6 tells us exactly how to handle, if you see a brother falling or brother or sister falling and how to handle that. And, we gotta again strive to represent God more so in the right way, right? And if we ain't ready for it, like there's that milk to meat scripture. You still on milk and you just need God to heal you and deal with your traumas and stuff like that. Don't feel like the necessity to go out there and bleed all over everybody else.
Okay.
Just go ahead and focus on that, but that meat ends up getting to a point where you start thinking seeing scripture and through God's heart and through his eyes and wanting what God wants, for people and
That's true.
and seeing things differently. And it's less about you and it's more about the kingdom and it's more about God's purpose for you and the people around you. So we just got to do better. So that's all I got for today. Y'all got anything else?
No, that was good. That was really good.
Dion?
We are the salt of the earth, and we're going to do better about equipping one another, equipping the saints, helping each other, iron sharpening iron, loving on each other, loving us back to life.
Yes, sir.
That's what we in charge of doing. That's our mission.
That's
This
it.
radio show is loving you back to life, helping you know that you're valuable, you okay, no matter how far you stray away. God love you. He got you. He did not cause your traumas. People did. It's not God. God and people are separate. We're supposed to have God in us, but sometimes we don't act like it and we don't let God show up through us. So when people traumatize you, it's not God. God is holy. He's righteous. He's love. And he does want the best for people. Like he wants good for mankind. He wants you to excel in your life. I promise you, he's for you. He's not against you. He's for you.
All the way.
So one thing that everybody under the sound of my voice must keep in mind is that whatever you're going through, whatever road you found yourself on, and you feel like stuff is happening to you, remember, God didn't walk away from you. You walked away from God. If you find yourself in a series of struggles, if you find yourself in tribulation after tribulation, it probably all started, if you go back and research, when you took that left and went over there instead of taking the right. Continuing on with God, you know what I'm saying? Because, regardless of what you done stepped in or feel like they stepped on you, it's all a result of you stepping away from God. And he's still right there where you left him at. All you got to do is turn around and go back to him. He's right there waiting to receive you. And we love you, and we appreciate you, and we want only the best for you. And if you ever need to talk, we're all here for you.
Yes, sir.
That's true.
Welcome to the talk show. Well, we're kicking you